Mhm. Hello, hello. I'm just going to check. Hi, Janet. I'm just going to check that we are live on Zoom. I haven't got Gia with me today, so I'm doing the tech pieces myself. So
Facebook's live.
yeah, we'll just make sure. Yep, it's streaming. That's all good. That's all good. So just as a reminder, I'll turn that on to silent. So just as a reminder for those that are tuning in via the Facebook group, you are welcome to join us on Zoom. Gia, as you watch this, I hope you're looking at the Facebook group. If you pop a link for the Zoom in there, people are welcome to join us on Zoom. In fact, I highly encourage you to do that today. But otherwise, if you are choosing to watch via the Facebook group, or if you catch this on replay, I don't see any of the comments while I'm here in the Zoom room, but I'll definitely come back and have a look after. So today's conversation is going to be something a little different. And the reason it's going to be different is because you just get me today. I'm not bringing any other speaker in for the purposes of this conversation. And what I want to talk about today has the potential to be a little bit controversial. And I ask, as you tune in and as you listen, to keep your heart open. This is not a place of right and wrong. It's not a place of good and bad. There's no fault, blame, guilt, shame. This is a place of curiosity where we look at what's going on across the world through a lens of letting go of preconceived ideas or beliefs about loneliness, about political correctness. So what I want to do is I'm going to be getting us all to have a little look at a book called The Weaponization of Loneliness by Stella Morabito. And I will talk us through this a little bit because I think you'll find possibly all the insights that you need simply from reading and listening to the blurb about the book. And then we will look at what is happening with our fear of ostracization and why this stops us from doing so many things in our lives, and how we step more confidently into being a voice of truth and wisdom. I will just mute that. So maybe if we start with, the reason that I wanted to highlight the conversation of loneliness, obviously this is the Reconnection Revolution, the second series where we are looking at connection to other people. And loneliness right now is an epidemic. It is an absolute epidemic across the Western world. And looking at statistics, I remember hearing in one of Brené Brown's books, her talking about a study that was done that showed that loneliness is equivalent to our health as a pack of day cigarettes. And I remember hearing this and thinking, how on earth do they find these things out? Or trying to wrap my head around how those two things could possibly be, how that statistic for loneliness could possibly be ascertained. And there's been a lot of more research that's been done on this over the years, and they have shown that living with air pollution increases our odds of dying by 5%. Living with obesity increases our odds of dying by 20%. Living with excessive drinking increases our odds of dying by 30%. Living with loneliness increases our odds of dying by 45%. Now, when I tie this back, and I'm a great lover of linking the threads so that we don't just look at these things in isolation. But if we look at the conversation that we had yesterday with fabulous Marcus Pierce about the blue zones and looking at what supports longevity. So these are these communities that have people that are living to over 100. And when I talk about living, I mean still living, not just existing in a nursing home, but chopping their own wood, cooking their own food, going to each other's houses for meals, one of them still getting on a horse and rounding up his cows. And, you know, their life has purpose. Their life has meaning. So when we think about the things that are causing ill health and the way that we've been shown to think about this, we grab onto the next diet, the next exercise regime, protecting ourselves from pollutants in the environment, detoxing our homes. You know, as you think about this, think about the things that come to mind most immediately when you think about protecting your health, your physical and mental health. And I am going to imagine that it's not loneliness that's jumping to the top of the list. And it probably hasn't even made it onto the list. But the good news is that loneliness isn't a pathology. We don't need to go to a doctor to get a prescription for it. It is something that we can recognize in ourselves. We don't need anybody else to tell us we're lonely. We know when we're lonely. And loneliness is not about being surrounded by tribes of other people. Johann Hari, in the book Lost Connections, he says loneliness is not the physical absence of other people. It's a sense that you are not sharing anything that matters with anyone else. So we can bring these points of connection, these things that matter, into our everyday lives. And I'll come back to this in a minute. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to share my screen with you and just read through this blurb on the weaponization of loneliness so that you get a sense of how this is not new information. Unfortunately, those that want to turn society on its head and keep us all separated and scrabbling with each other and fighting over political parties and sexual identities and different diets and all the different things that get thrown up for us to feel divisive over and to fight over. The powers that be that want to create this dysfunction in our society are very well aware that loneliness is actually a kryptonite. So as I read through this, and for those of you that want to go and buy this book, it's this screen here. You certainly can. It's just on Amazon. Stella Morabito has done countless interviews that you can find if you just Google it, if you want to learn more about this. But I just want you to, as I read this, listen to it in reference to your own lives and things that have happened in our society in very recent times, where we were all isolated and locked in. So the weaponization of loneliness offers the first deep dive into how power elites weaponize the fear of loneliness to enforce social conformity and wage war on the private sphere of life. Do you keep your opinions to yourself because you're afraid people will reject you? I highly, highly, highly encourage everybody write these questions down. You can come back to this. This is just on Amazon. And think about how you would answer that question. Do you keep your opinions to yourself because you're afraid people will reject you? I can immediately think of several times. There are quite a few different things going on in a very loud way across our society and our communities at the moment that I feel hesitant to speak about. The Barbie movie was one. And my honest experience of watching that movie, I was so heartbroken and angry. And I really would love to know others' opinions, because when I look at people that I love and admire praising the Barbie movie and how fabulous it was, I feel, it gives me that feeling of uncertainty. What am I missing? Why don't I see it the same way everybody else is seeing it? Why am I feeling so sad and rocked by this? For anyone that comes in, please just take a moment to mute your microphones for me. So in the opening scene of the Barbie movie, we see young girls playing with their beautiful baby dolls. And then there is a clear messaging that this is boring, stifling behavior. And then we see this great monolith of the Barbie arrive on screen, and these children smashing up their baby dolls. The freedom of being released from the boredom and monotony and soul-crushing work of looking after children. So that now we can idolize what was in the 1940s a sex doll made for men. And that's just the opening scene of the Barbie movie. So there are so many things like this that I have felt tempted over time to keep my opinions to myself. Why do we do this? Because we don't want to offend anybody else. We don't want to open ourselves up to criticism. We don't want to rock the boat. Do you sign on to a cause just because everyone around you acts like it's the right thing to do? In Australia right now, we have a conversation around Speak Up and the Aboriginal voice in Parliament. There are two very different conversations going on around this at the moment. There is definitely popular opinion and there's unpopular opinion. So it's an opportunity to look at, am I going with popular opinion because it is that desire to fit in? And have I done my research and made an opinion based on what is true for me, based on research, as opposed to popular opinion? Doesn't make popular opinion wrong. That's not the conversation. It's about questioning and finding your own truth and being brave enough to stand in that truth. This is part of why we did so much work on values in the first series of the Reconnection Revolution, and understanding your values. She shall not be moved. It's planting yourself so firmly in your values that you know you can trust yourself to make the right decision. So those two questions, I encourage everybody to take time to journal on them for yourself. Have a conversation with your friends. Have a conversation around the dinner table. Do you keep your opinion to yourself because you're afraid people will reject you? Do you sign on to a cause just because everyone around you acts like it's the right thing to do? If you're a vegan sitting in a room full of carnivores, do you hesitate to speak up? If you're a carnivore sitting in a room full of vegans, do you hesitate to speak up? If you're vaccinated in a room full of people that don't vaccinate, are you afraid to speak up? And conversely, the amount of times that I've spoken up in difficult situations where I wish I didn't have to have been long. And I understand the discomfort that I caused my children, and I did it anyway. And at times it left me crumpled in tears, but I did it anyway. When there's great pressure at sporting events for the mothers to take turns in bringing the lolly snakes for the kids to eat after a game, and I wouldn't do it because I don't believe that eating toxic food is a treat for our kids or supports their well-being or ability to play football. Bananas and oranges do that, not lolly snakes. That's my belief. And it goes against popular opinion and popular behavior. But as long as we keep indoctrinating our children with the belief that toxic food is a treat, then our problem with ill health will continue. Where without judgment, without making yourself wrong, without any form of shame, do you conform? Where it goes against your values, your truth, from the fear of ostracism, from the fear of not fitting in. Welcome to the weaponization of loneliness. Tyrants of all stripes want to tell you that to believe what to believe and how to live your life. They get away with it by using the most potent weapon at their disposal, your fear of ostracism. I love the things that land in my brain and just refuse to leave. And it always fascinates me, the things that I wish I could remember and I've got no hope of remembering that seem really important, that just fly out of my brain and disappear. And then there's things that people say that plant themselves in my brain. And I know at some point I'm going to need to remember this. There's a reason behind it. And there's a gorgeous woman in the vision building community, Sandy, who asked me once in the group, why are we so afraid to do something different? We were talking about doing things differently, dressing differently, playing, being more playful, dancing, being silly. And it's this. Fear of ostracism makes us want to homogenize, to be like everybody else, to dress the same as everybody else, to say the same things as everybody else, to do the same things as everybody else, to fit the system. Don't stand out. Don't be too big for your boots. When what we really need is for people to stand out, for people to speak up, for people to be way too big for their boots. This book explains how dictators from the French Revolution to the Communist Party of China to today's globalists aim to atomize us in order to control us. We fall for it because our need to connect with others and our fear of social rejection are so hardwired that they trigger our conformity impulse. These dynamics can even cause us to comply with evil orders. Evil. Through the great lockdown, when I heard whispers of popular radio hosts, TV hosts on the news saying, what are we going to do with the unvaccinated at Christmas? Convincing families to lock family members out. Conquer and divide. We do it with political parties, we do it through our diets, we do it through the color of our skin, through any number of things. We all need a better understanding of how the merchants of loneliness, power elites in big tech, big media, big government, academia, Hollywood, and the corporate world exploit our terror of social isolation. Their divide and conquer tactics include identity politics, political correctness, and mob agitation. Their media monopoly spawns the propaganda essential to demonization campaigns, censorship, cancel culture, snitch culture, struggle sessions, the criminalization of comedy, and the subversion of society's most fundamental institutions. It all adds up to a machinery of loneliness. Ironically, people tend to comply with this machine to avoid loneliness. But such compliance only isolates us further. The weaponization of loneliness offers a message of hope. We can resist this psychological warfare. Funny to mix those words up. Psychological warfare if we have strong bonds in our families, faith communities, and friendships. Let's resolve to talk to one another openly and often, especially about the consequences of giving in to social pressures and media hype. Indeed, totalitarians always seek to destroy private life because it is the very fount of freedom. There is a great hesitancy to talk about things that feel very heavy and hard to face and triggering and controversial. But it is in our avoidance of these subjects that we continue to break down our society, break down our communities. We're so afraid of that social isolation. I had an occasion yesterday to go and visit a very old friend that I haven't seen for a long time. And it was a heart-opening session. And I said to her at some point, it feels like I have been on the outside all my life, and it feels so hard. And she said to me, I thank you, because in you being you, it has given me permission to be me. And I want all of you who are tuning into this to see how that can be you. When you stand clearly in your values, unapologetically, when you speak your truth, when you stand for what is right and good over what is fast, cheap, and easy, you add to this beautiful foundation of a healthy, inclusive. This is what inclusive means. Community, society, world. Based in truth and wisdom, where we can look at the foundations of the things that create a beautiful life. Communities where loneliness isn't even a conversation, because we sit around the table and eat meals together, and we're okay when people have a different opinion. We make it okay again for people to have a different opinion. I'm having a little laugh in my head as I think about my gorgeous son, who's going to be 16 at the end of this month, and he proudly announced to me that he's going to get his ears pierced for his 16th birthday. And the conversation in my head is no, 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 no. And the conversation that my mum had with me was a blanket no. That's a cheap girls have their ears pierced. Rules, beliefs. And so, you know, this is part of learning, deciding what's right for us, what's right in our families, and as our children grow, accepting that they're going to have right for them that may feel different to us. But we don't love them any less. We don't shut the door. We don't say, well, if you're going to vote for this political party, when in our house we've always gone for this football team, or we've always voted for this party, or we've always... There's no shutting the door. There's no shutting the door on the neighbour who does things differently. We open our doors. We open our hearts. Loneliness is cured through meaningful interaction. Meaningful interaction can be a conversation that is different. We don't have to agree. We just have to listen. This whole series is the reconnection revolution. We connect with other people by opening our hearts, by being the most authentic, highest expression of the woman we are here to be, by being of service to others, by looking through a filter of love, not fear. This is how we connect with other people. And it's an awareness of how loneliness is being used as a weapon to divide us, that we can decide that we're not going to be part of that. We're not going to be a tool in this game. Call it what you like. We're not going to buy into that conversation. And it's not always easy. In fact, it's often not easy. It often comes with the willingness to feel a little uncomfortable. And the more that we can lock arms as women, as friends, in communities, masterminds, finding other people, like-minded people who are willing to explore these conversations without making anybody right or wrong. The stronger we'll be. So this is a lovely opportunity to draw a lot of the threads together. For those of you that perhaps didn't join us for the first series, that's all there. It's all accessible for you. You can go back and have a listen. Think about what your values are. Think about who you are. Without all the shoulds, without the rule book. We had a lovely conversation in my mastermind this morning about, who gets to write the rule book? Who said that goes in your rule book? What is your rule book for your life? Who are you a voice for? What are you a voice for? What do you take a stand for? What do you know? What is your truth for what creates a better world? A world where everybody gets to feel valued, seen and heard, to have an opinion and to change their opinion. Think about it. Play with the answer. And whatever the answer is that you come up with, it's okay if it changes, but we've got to start somewhere. And this is this evolution, this beautiful evolution of life. We're growing, we're changing, we're learning. It's thinking about, I'm going to make the best decision I can today with what I know right now. And if I learn something different tomorrow, then I'll do something different. There's all these different chapters of who you are, the people that you want to connect with, that you choose to connect with. And as women in this community, most of the women in this community that tune into the work that I do are 45, 55, 65 plus. We are women of wisdom in this world. What we have to say, what we have learned, holds enormous value. The world needs us. The world needs our feminine wisdom, the lessons we've learned, how to connect with other people in a meaningful way. And if you're searching for your life purpose, the answer of what you're here to do, maybe this is what you're here to do right now, is to be a voice of grounded wisdom and truth amongst the chaos and clutter. To be a voice for somebody who's feeling lonely and isolated. We only need one other person to break that loneliness in somebody's life. You can do it when you walk into the supermarket rather than going through the express checkout. Stop and speak to somebody who is checking your groceries out one thing at a time. and have a conversation beyond how are you today? Good, thanks. Imagine having to say that 60 times in a shift. How are you today? Good, thanks. How are you today? Good, thanks. How are you today? Good, thanks. This is the breaking down of our humanity that I spoke about on day one. I love that haircut. Oh, gee, that shade of lipstick's amazing. What time do you knock off work? Have you got plans for the afternoon? Connect in a more meaningful ways. Find something to connect with the humanity of the person you are being served by. Or if you are serving somebody else, connect with them, that person. Who are they? Find out some little nugget that gives you an insight into the human in front of you, because you may just be the person that pulls them out of a loneliness spot in their lives. And if we remember from the beginning of this conversation that loneliness is more lethal to our health than air pollution and obesity and excessive drinking, it just might put a different spin on it. I hope. Opening our hearts in that generous act of connection with other people. All right, beautiful souls, that is it from me today. I'll put a link to that book with this video. If you want to go back and just write those questions down and ponder them for yourself. Inside the 3Cs community, we'll be looking at that in a little bit more depth. For those of you that have been sitting on the fence and thinking of joining us in there, this is actually a perfect time. This is a perfect time. It's a very, very powerful, world-changing conversation. All right, that's it from me today. So much love, and bye for now.